Hi, I'm Steve Maher. I'm the ergonomics guy, and what I do is I help people work more comfortably and efficiently in the workstation. And for a lot of our clients, they really don't know what we do until we're on site helping them. So what I'd like to do is show you what I do. So I saw a woman this morning who was complaining about shoulder pain and low back pain, and I took before and after pictures. And what I'd like to do is show you how I found her, and we'll go through and we'll review the risk factors that I saw, and then I'll show you the after picture and show you how we set her up to minimize further pain in the workstation and avoid the risk of future injury, and then talk about how we did that in any equipment that we might have recommended. So without further ado, we'll jump into the screen capture software and we'll check out what she was doing. So this is the client that I worked with today, and when I came in, she was complaining about shoulder pain and low back pain. And this is actually pretty typical because people are set up like this a lot of the time. And the problem is that she's sitting really low in the chair. So what that does biomechanically is it tends to roll her pelvis back, which causes her back to come forward into this big C shape. And in that position, there's really no support here in her low back. Then the keyboard is way above her elbow level. So with her arms relaxed and her elbows at about belly button level, or her hands at belly button level, the keyboard should be down here. And you can see it's up here. So she's kind of got this zombie posture going on where she's reaching out to get to the keyboard. And that causes stress on the shoulders. You can kind of see that her shoulders elevated just a little bit. So she's shrugging her shoulders. But then as she reaches out, she looks for support. And she's getting support right here on the edge of the keyboard, and that's a problem because that is where your carpal tunnel is. So if you're leaning on the edge of the keyboard, that can cause numbness in your fingers. One thing to note is this is a Microsoft Natural keyboard, which is really good for certain people, but it comes with this negative tilt bar that you can kind of see right under there. And what that does is it gives the keys a downward slope. And that's great if the keyboard is below your elbows. The problem is if the keyboard is above your elbows, it puts your wrists in actually a much worse position. So the problems here are the chair isn't supporting her back, the desk is too high, and the keyboard is even higher and in a worse position. So she's got this zombie thing going on where she's just reaching way up all the time. So what did we do is, what we did is, move her over here. First thing we did is we set up the chair. So most people sit too low in the chair. And by raising the chair, we got her pelvis to sit in a slightly forward position. So if we raise the chair up so that her hips are a little bit above her knees, what that does is it brings the spine into a much more neutral posture like this, a more natural supported position, where her head is actually balanced over her spine, where here her spine was in this big C shape and her head was here. And so her head was actually putting a lot more stress on her low back. The other thing about sitting up higher is she was tall enough so that her elbows were at about desk level. So now her shoulders are relaxed. She's not elevating her shoulders. They're actually sloped in a neutral position or down just a little bit. Her arms are at her side. Her elbow's about 90 degrees, but her wrists are nice and straight. So what we did is we took off that negative tilt bar. So now instead of reaching and putting pressure on her carpal tunnel, she can float over the keys. So in this assessment, what we did is we adjusted the chair to support a more neutral posture, which allowed her to sit higher, which allowed her to relax her shoulders and keep her head balanced over her shoulders. And now that relatively lowered the keyboard so that she can float her hands over the keyboard and take pressure off the carpal tunnel. The one thing that we didn't do is raise the monitor because now her eyes are up here and her monitor's down there, so she has a tendency to look down just a little bit. And what we did before we left actually was throw another ream of paper under here to bring the screen up just a little bit higher. So this is a pretty typical ergonomic assessment where we go in and she has good equipment, she just isn't using it correctly. And a lot of what we do is training people to use the equipment that they already have as opposed to reinventing the wheel and buying a lot of things that they may not actually need. So the equipment that we would recommend for her is maybe some monitor risers here to bring the monitor up just a couple of inches. Maybe, actually the other thing we recommended was a corner diagonal. So they have these big pieces of metal that are shaped like this. And what that does is it makes the edge of your desk solid so you can bring the keyboard back just a little bit and maximize the desk space. But really, that is not a lot of equipment. We're not recommending a new chair. We're not recommending a keyboard tray. We're not recommending any really outrageous equipment so that she can work in a much more neutral posture. So that is what we do. That is what an ergonomic assessment entails. And so if you're having pain in your workstation or if you need help setting up your workstation, please contact us and we can work with you either in person or online to set you up to work as comfortably and as functionally as possible. So give us a call, let us help you get set up, and thank you very much for your time.